As I've said, if you're part of a marriage in Ireland, in other words, if you're a husband or a wife, and the other spouse dies, you've always been entitled to claim a widow's or widower's pension. There was a case brought to the courts back last year, and as a result of that case, we now have legislation that states that if your people are cohabiting, in other words, if they're just living together for a certain period and they never actually got around to getting married or never intended to get married, then the survivor, if one of them dies, the survivor can now claim a widow's or widower's pension. Now, the first thing to say is that this pension can be backdated, but it can only be backdated until the 22nd of January 2024, which was the day at which the Supreme Court made their decision. So you can apply if you're a cohabitant now. If you fall into the category of cohabitant, you can apply no matter when your partner died, but the payment will only be backdated till the 22nd of January 2024. And if your partner died subsequent after the 22nd of January 2024, you can only have your payment backdated to his or her date of death. In other words, just to give an example, suppose somebody's partner died back in 2022, they can only claim back to the 22nd of January 2024. If their partner died, say, 2 months ago, they can only claim back for the 2 months. So just to clarify that, because there is, I've noticed some confusion in public comment about that particular point. Now, survivors' pensions, there's two types of survivors' pensions: contributory, based on your stamps, your partner's stamps, or non-contributory. If you don't have sufficient stamps, you can look for the non-contributory survivors' pension, if you don't have sufficient stamps, you can look for the non-contributory survivors' pension, but there is a means test for that, so any other means, capital or income you have, will be taken into account. In order to qualify for a survivor's pension as a cohabitant, you will have to show there are two conditions, really. The first thing is that you must have been in an intimate and loving relationship for a certain period of time. Now, if people are living together, I would argue that if people are living together for quite a period of time, that can more or less be presumed. I don't think you're going to have to produce a huge amount of evidence to support that. But secondly, you have to be living with the person for 5 years. That intimate and loving relationship has to be continued for a period of 5 years. If you don't have any children from that relationship. However, if you have children, if the two partners, one of whom has died, have children from their particular relationship, then you only have to be together for 2 years. To give you an example, suppose two people get together and they both have children from previous relationships. They will have to wait 5 years. It's only if they have children from the particular relationship between the person who is claiming and the person who has died that you only have to wait 2 years. Now, it's important to point out also that this survivor's pension, just like the old widow's pension, it only lasts as long as you're alone. If you marry somebody or start cohabiting with somebody, technically, legally speaking, you're no longer entitled to the survivor's pension, and you're obliged to inform the department. Now, I would advise people who fall into that category to inform the department, because ultimately they will find out, and then you'll be faced with a huge bill for arrears. The other thing to mention is that there's a grant called Widow's Bereavement Grant, where there's one or more children of the marriage, and that particular one of the partners dies, then the survivor, if there's one or more children, the survivor is entitled to a once-off lump sum of €8,000, provided they meet the relevant contribution conditions, provided either side meets the relevant contribution conditions. So that just is a very brief summary of the new legislation, there's a specific application form to apply for that, which we can, get you if you have any difficulty in acquiring it from the Department of Social Protection. It all arises from a Supreme Court decision that was announced on the 22nd of January of last year, and that means, if your partner died before the 22nd of January, you can claim back to the 22nd of January. If they died subsequently, you can only claim back to their date of death.